The safety net series of videos are some of the most popular on this channel, and today we're going to make them even better. How's it going, chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. I am Jesse, this is Stella, and today we're talking about improving the safety net recipes. It's a series of recipes that I've got going on the channel. There's 3 of them so far, and there's going to be a whole lot more coming soon-ish. But one thing that is standard across all of those recipes is people keep asking questions. Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I change this? Can I improve it by doing that? And the answer is, of course, do whatever you like to it, man. Like once you're trying it, it's basically your recipe. Give it a nudge. But one question pops up a whole lot more than any of the others. So I thought it would be a good idea for me to give an official response to that question, and probably more importantly, because spoiler, it's a good idea, is to give some tips and tricks on how I think you could do it the best way possible. So far, there are 3 safety net videos published here on the YouTube channel. That is the Isla safety net, the smoky Scotch safety net, and kind of like a New World biscuity whiskey. Of course, I'll put links to all of those in the description down below if you're interested on checking them out. Obviously, they are 3 very different kinds of whiskey, but they have a few common factors that run through all of them. The common factors that make it a safety net recipe. They're also designed to make 3 stripping runs into 1 spirit run for a 20 to 30 litre capacity still. And the biggest thing of all is that they have a safety net. The safety net, of course, comes in the form of sugar. And honestly, guys, this is in a lot of ways more of a mental safety net than actually making the recipe work safety net. So the idea is that if you completely screw up the all grain mash, it's still going to ferment. You're still going to get flavor from the grains. The sugar's going to ferment, and you're still going to have something at the end of the day that you can distill. So the sugar is our backup. It's our safety net for this recipe to help ensure that the stuff actually ferments. But let's face it, it's not really doing us any favors in terms of mouthfeel and in terms of flavor. So that's where this question that keeps popping up comes in, which is, of course, can I buy a bottle of it? Won't it make you go blind? Isn't this going to be real crappy? That's not how my granddaddy did it. No. Can I use more grain and less sugar? And the answer, of course, is yes. Of course you can. Right after we say a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Into the AM. I've got one of their hoodies on here. Awesome hoodies. It's cold here in New Zealand. And of course, I've got my Lunar Spirits shirt on, which is a collaboration between Into the AM and Chase the Craft. Comfy, hard-wearing shirts, dope designs. What more could you possibly ask for? I'll tell you what. You buy 3 shirts, you get them for $60. That's a nice little discount. But right now, they're offering an extra 20% discount on that discounted price. And if you use the code in the description down below, or right here, you get an extra 10% off that. That's freaking awesome. Back to subbing sugar out for grain. And the first thing I want to talk about is quantities, amounts. How much sugar for how much grain? How do we think about this? The recipes are carefully designed to be 3 times the size of what you're going to be putting into the fermenter. 1 of those 3 is grain, and the other 2 are sugar. And in terms of the actual fermentables that are going, into the final wash, we've got about 1/3 fermentables from the grain, 1/3 from the first sugar, and 1/3 from the second sugar. 2/3 sugar would be an easy way to say that, wouldn't it? Generally, these recipes are always going to be roughly 8.5 kilos of grain and 6 kilograms of sugar. Now you could flip that up and make it 2/3 grain and 1/3 sugar, which would be 17 kilograms of grain and 3 kilograms of sugar. Or of course, you could just make all of it grain. But is it linear? Should you just double or triple all of the components in the grain bill? Unfortunately, not really. I probably wouldn't suggest it. Keep in mind, guys, that I'm trying to make these recipes so that you can age them for a shorter amount of time than you would normally age, a whiskey made just with base malt. So we're cramming in extra flavor using things like specialty malts. We're also trying to counteract the fact that we're losing flavor and mouthfeel and body by adding in a whole lot of sugar. So I'm counteracting that as well. In other words, they have a buttload of extra stuff in them compared to what a normal whiskey often is just base malt, like one type of malt. We're cramming in extra flavor to counteract those things. If you take the sugar out and you just double what we have already, then you've kind of doubled the doubling effort and you've lost half of what it is that's kind of costing us flavor as well. We're kind of cramming too much flavor into that 20 liters to make up for the whole rest of it. So I don't think it necessarily makes sense to just go doubling or tripling the entire recipe. Instead, I really suggest that you focus on the traditional malts for that style of whiskey. I know that's kind of weird, so let's do an example. The peated malt and the golden promise are the traditional malts in this recipe, and they're at a ratio of about 60-40. So what you would probably want to do to add an extra 8.5 kilograms to this is add in 3.4 kilograms of golden promise and 5.1 kilograms of the peated barley. If, however, you really just like those specialty malt flavors and you kind of want to double down on it, I mean, of course, it's your whiskey you're making, go for it. I think if you're going to do 2/3 grain, 1/3 sugar, you'd probably get away with that. If you're going to go to doing all grain and no sugar, I think that's probably pushing it a bit too much. Next up, let's talk about the actual practical aspect of doing this. Like, how do you go around mashing extra malt? And honestly, I think this is probably where things are going to get a little bit tricky for people if they don't have extra equipment and they don't want to spend up large on, all grain brewing equipment. The whole point of this recipe is that I wanted to make it accessible to people. They just, like, if they've bought a T500 or a clawhammer system or something that's similar in size, they don't need to buy extra brewing equipment to make this happen. But there are, of course, ways around this. And the first way is to buy more equipment. But I'm going to specify that in saying that you really don't need to buy all grain brewing equipment if you don't want to spend the money on that specific stuff. The more niche it is and the more purpose-built it is, the more it's going to cost, right? Have you got a 30-litre stock pot in your house? Not a lot of people do, but if you're, into making big stews, or you make stock because you have home kill or whatever, maybe you've got one. In that case, all you need is another brew in a bag, don't you? You're pretty much there. Have you got a 30-litre esky, chili bin, cooler, whatever you want to call it? You're pretty much already there. And then you can do exactly what we do in the normal recipes, just do it in tandem next to each other. The other way to do it is don't buy any extra equipment at all and just run the mashes back to back. Do one mash like we do in the video, put it into the fermenter, let it sit in the fermenter, and start again. The issue here is that you're really quickly going to realize that can take a really freaking long time. So if you're going to do it, do a little bit of planning up front. It's going to save you a whole lot of time, and make sure that you're using all of your downtime. So for example, as soon as you've mashed in with the first mash and it's going on its way merrily, start preheating liquid for the next one. Obviously, if you don't have another vessel, you're not going to do it in there, but put the jug on, put pots on, have some water heated. So it's going to take you, I don't know, like 10 minutes to heat up instead of an hour to heat up when you get to the second mash. As soon as you've got some downtime, start crushing all of the grains for the second one. So as soon as you're ready to go, you can just mash in. You're not having to, I've hit my strike temp and now I'm going to go crush grains. Just, be aware that it's going to take some time. So we've talked about the why you might want to do this, and we've talked about the how to do this and how to go about it. What I haven't talked about is the whether you should do it. And that is a very personal question. That's up to you, not something that I can answer for you. It's entirely up to you to decide, but what I can do is put these two lists up on screen. And one of these lists is going to have a bunch of sort of descriptors about where you might be or why you do the sort of things you do and why you enjoy chasing the craft. If you agree with all of those, you probably do want to give this a nudge and bump up the amount of grain you're using. And the other is the opposite. I just thought I'd throw these up to help sort of spell it out a little bit more if you're thinking about whether or not to do this. Obviously, if you decide not to, there's always next time. There you have it, guys. I like making these videos every now and again because these are the sort of videos that I hope, what I hope for in these videos is that they are really valuable to the long-term viewers of this channel, the people that know what a safety net recipe is and that they've tried a couple of them, the people that know what the safety net recipes are and they want to try one and they're thinking about it. It's not these videos aren't about getting big views. They're not about getting rich on YouTube. They're about me trying to help the community out with specific questions they have and build a more awesome community into the future. That sounds wanky, but you know what I mean. Anyway, guys, do the YouTube things if you enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, so on and so forth. And even more important than all of that, I'll catch you next time. Keep on chasing the craft, guys. See ya.